How did you find out your child had GSD? And can you tell me a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, it's kind of a long story, so I'll try to shorten it, but there was a series of a lot of events. So Mia was actually born at 36 weeks and 2 days. And initially, we didn't think that she was going to have to go to the NICU, but she wouldn't latch. And then we found out then that she had low blood sugar. But I guess that can be common with preterm babies. So it wasn't really that big of a deal. She was in NICU for 3 days, and then they sent us home. Following that, she seemed like she was just like cluster feeding all the time. Like she had to eat every 30 minutes, every 45 minutes. Otherwise, she was screaming, and it was like the only thing that comforted her. And then one night, we had finally gotten her into kind of a routine where she would actually go to bed and she would sleep for like 6 hours at a time or whatever, and then, wake up normal, month-old baby stuff. And then one night she just wouldn't calm down. She was yelling all night, no tears, no crying, but yelling. And it was really bizarre. And so in the morning, I tried to give her a bath, calm her down. Nothing was working. So I ended up going into the ER. And I initially told them that she was having some retractions from being so worked up and upset, and that I thought that maybe she was just constipated or having tummy issues or something, because prior to that, we had a really hard time finding a formula that had worked for her because I wasn't able to produce, so breastfeeding wasn't an option for us. So we get to the ER and they do a bunch of workups and everything's coming back normal at first. And then they finally decide to do a ultrasound of the abdomen. And that's when they found out that her liver was very enlarged. And the doctor asked me if I wanted to do more testing. And I said, absolutely. This is already, I think, our fourth time being in the ER in, a month and a half. I will do, and like I was taking her to the doctor probably every week, and I swore that something was wrong, and nobody would, tell me that something was wrong. Everybody kept saying that she was fine. And then at one point they chalked it up to colic, but something in my gut just, I knew something wasn't right. And so once they did those tests, everything after those tests, her metabolic panel and her liver levels, everything came back really abnormal and kind of scary. So they ended up admitting us. We were there for 6 days before we got any sort of answer. The only reason why I was able to get an answer before that was because on my chart, if you know what that is, they send you the test results before the doctor even comes in and sees you. And all of a sudden, I start seeing GSD, GSD, GSD. And nobody had told me anything. And so I'm panicking a little bit because I don't know what that is. And so I go on Google, and I probably should not have done that, but I put myself in a deep hole. And finally, my dad went up to the doctor and was like, look, we've been here for 6 days. We're getting all these things, but nobody's telling us anything. Someone needs to tell us something now. And the doctor finally sat down with me and said, this is what GSD is. This is what we're testing for, but we won't know 100% until genetics comes back. Fast forward to a couple days later, her tests come back and they say that they are 98% sure that it's GSD, but we won't know until we test mom and dad. So me and my husband, we go and get tested, and I think we got the results like a week later, and we found out that it is in fact GSD type 1B, because my husband and I both have the mutation in the gene that we passed on to her. And that's how we found out. We ended up being in the hospital for about a month, and then we got the official diagnosis, and that was that.
And can you explain a little bit about what GSD1B is, please?
Yes. So GSD1B, glycogen storage disease type 1B, is essentially where they are not able to process glucose or glycogen like a normal person could. I'm not going to try to explain it in the medical mumbo jumbo because I personally couldn't understand it. But essentially, she cannot utilize glucose into energy the way that a normal person can. And so it stores in her liver that she's unable to process and use, and making her liver become enlarged. And then if she doesn't have the correct type of sugars, so like she can have dextrose and things like that, it can cause her to go hypoglycemic, which could potentially be fatal with things such as seizures, comas, and sometimes it can take a minute for the sugar to come back up, or her blood sugar levels. And the 1B portion is for the neutropenia aspect. where that she doesn't have the correct amount of white blood cells to fight off illnesses, again, like a normal person does. So when she gets sick, or if she gets sick, again, it could potentially be fatal or life threatening, versus if, a normal person gets a cold, they can fight it off and they're okay. Her, it can turn into something much worse and she can get a lot more sick.
When you found out that she had GSD, what emotions were running through your mind?
Um, At first, I didn't really understand what it was. And so I was kind of just really confused. And then once I got some more explanation and I did my own research on the specific type that she had, not all the other ones, because I initially was thinking like the worst possible scenario, because there is a type of GSD that can be really, really dangerous. Um, I was, a little bit, I was more okay knowing the type that she had because it wasn't one of the fatal ones. But I was completely devastated because it really sucks to like talk about this, because I guess if you're not in my position, or, a parent's position with a special needs child, you're never going to understand exactly where we're coming from. But I have had to, and I still am grieving what I thought was going to be, like I remember crying to my dad about something. It seems so small to anybody on the outside, but about how I was so excited to start baby led weaning and let her try to eat, all the fruits and like all the fun stuff, and just watch her get all messy on her face and so excited. And then I realized I can't do that because it's not safe for her. And it just has been really hard because, like I said, I'm learning all these new things. And I mean, on top of it, I'm a young mom, and trying to navigate being a first time mom and a young mom when you don't really have that support and like community around you, I guess, of being a young mom. On top of it, it has it broke my heart to find out what the condition was and what I was going to do. And every day still I struggle really hard, and that this is my new reality and I have to learn so many things. And my life now is, obviously it's always going to be your kid, but now it's not just about having a daughter, it's about having a special needs daughter and making sure that I'm doing all the correct things, and that I'm making sure that she's safe and that she's normal things aren't normal for her, I guess.
What has helped you through that grieving process?
The GSD community, 100%. It's funny. I actually ended up meeting somebody who lives. GSD is a very, very rare disease. Online, statistically, it says 1 in every 100,000 live births. But my genetics doctor actually said that it's more rare than that, that the statistics are incorrect. And I actually ended up meeting somebody who lives 30 minutes away, who has a son that has the same exact type of GSD as Mia. And she introduced me to a lot of resources. And it's been a great community because I can post questions that are never too big or too small. And I don't ever feel like I am upsetting anybody with my questions or inconveniencing anybody with my questions, because we're all just parents trying to navigate this crazy thing that not a lot of people know about. And the GSD community has been absolutely incredible. I have learned so much. I have had days where I just want to cry, and sometimes I do. And I can reach out to some of those people who, are going through the same thing. And so I don't feel alone. And also my family, my parents and my husband have been amazing support. My parents have gone with me to almost every hospital stay and all of her major doctors so that they know how to handle her. And I still do get the chance every once in a while to be, 24 years old and go out with my husband, or, hang out with, my sister or whatever. And I know that my daughter's in safe hands at home because the people around her cared enough to go to these appointments and learn about things as well. So I know that she's safe and they know what to do in the chance of an emergency or, whatever. But the GSD community has been phenomenal.
I'm glad to hear that. As your daughter grows up, how do you plan to continue educating her on her diagnosis and not being able to eat sugars like other kids?
That's kind of a hard question just because I've thought about it, but I really am still unsure. But I know that I want Mia to know that she is different, but that being different is not a bad thing. And I want her to be aware of her diagnosis, and I want her to have a good understanding so that she's confident to handle her diagnosis. And I've seen horror stories of some people with GSD when they were growing up that they were terrified to, drink their cornstarch or have their glucose monitor go off or whatever. And I don't want her to feel that way. I want her to be completely confident in every single thing that she does, even if that means that she's a little bit different. And I also just want to make it a point to know for her to know how important it is that I'm not just being, mean or trying to punish her for not being able to go eat a candy bar or, do all these things again that normal kids can do because I want her to know that it's just for her safety. But if she wants to try something, that I'm also completely open to finding a way to potentially make it so she can try it in a way that's safe for her. Because the great thing about it being year 2023, we have all sorts of amazing ingredients and recipes that, cater to the low sugar, low carb life that she could definitely try these things, just maybe be a little bit different. And, there's also lots of lessons there. She could learn to cook and love it. And there's so many things that she can learn as she grows up that it's just, they're important lessons that maybe someday she can help somebody else. But I mean, obviously, you have all these ideas of what you think you're going to do, but then that's not really how it happens. So I don't know because she's only 6.5 months old now. So a lot could change between now and, when she's 20. But my biggest thing is I want her to have confidence in herself and her diagnosis and, finding a community of people that support and love her and just being confident and okay enough to know she can come and talk to us if something's going on or, if she makes a mistake or whatever.
Is there something that you would like to see happen in the GS community that is not currently offered?
Um, I would love more education around it, with other doctors because even now, like when I talk about it, people have no clue what I'm talking about. And they don't take it as seriously as it should be taken. Because despite how most people hear about GSD and they say, oh, so she has to eat a lot. Oh, you have to feed her. They think of it kind of like diabetes. Like, oh, she needs to eat some candy or she needs to drink some juice. When that is so not the case, it's actually the opposite. And I don't think that there's enough education around it at all, which therefore leads to less resources because knowledge is power. And we can't change anything if we don't have the knowledge to do it. And I truly think that, the treatment of cornstarch is crazy to me. We also haven't experienced that part of it because she's too young. We have to wait until she's a year old. So we're not in that portion of it. So right now, my life consists of feeding her every hour to 2.5 hours. It just depends on how she is that day or what's going on. Um, but I guess that's my biggest thing is I would just love there to be more education and knowledge around it so that I don't feel like I have to explain it every single time I see somebody new.
Is there anything else you would like to share today?
Just that these kids are resilient and incredible. And just because somebody may, I don't know, just because there's somebody may have a disability or an illness or something that you can't see doesn't mean that it's not there. And again, there should be more resources and also for mental health around this as well, because I know that parents who find out about this struggle. Kids as they get older or they get their diagnosis at an age where they can understand it, they have to struggle. And just how amazing these kids are. Because I mean, I'm a little biased. She's my daughter, but she is the most incredible little girl I have ever met. She is beautiful and strong and funny. And despite having this horrible illness that she doesn't even really understand anything about it, she doesn't let it stop her. She is, they're amazing. And I think that it's awesome how much strength we have as a community to be able to help each other out. I mean, even being miles and miles and miles away from each other, if you need something, the community has your back. And I think that that is fantastic.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, of course.